you like to say a few words, sir?
Just discuss the poetic situation here at the moment. It's dire. Belfast will erupt shortly.
Something was terribly wrong in this place, and then all of a sudden we went from the smallest prison population per capita in Europe to the highest prison population in Europe in the space of 18 months.
There were children who went on a mock evacuation to Scotland because there was going to be a civil war. I couldn't believe this was Belfast and there was gunfire. And there was people running everywhere and nobody knew what to do. And also, some people had also at the same time got their vesting orders that their houses were coming down.
The housing conditions were very poor. People were living in very damp housing conditions. They were suffering all sorts of pulmonary conditions and illnesses.
Me and my mates go around and catch rats.
Violence always comes from somewhere. Organised violence comes from somewhere, it doesn't come from nowhere. You know, people didn't stand up one day and decide to be bad people today. People didn't parachute in from somewhere else and arm themselves and then start killing people. Something happened to us as a people. There was an explosion that destroyed us, virtually destroyed us.
We were so determined and single-minded about what was required that we had to, in effect, sacrifice ourselves for the overall good of the struggle of our communities and for the people in Ireland in general. That we felt that whatever hurt our families suffered as a result of our den and hunger strike would be outweighed by the greater good for the people of Ireland.
Apart from the hunger strike era, which lasted, say 79 to 81 when the worst what happened, people began to open up in a whole lot of different ways. Belfast city centre began to open up in the early 80s. We began just to slowly normalise.
People say my daddy is special because he is in heaven, but I would love him to live in our house. Please don't fight anymore, or other boys and girls could lose their daddies also. Isn't it time we stood together and listened to our children?
It's actually a very historic day for Northern Ireland. The Ulster Unionist Council voted 58 to 42 to follow the procedures which will give us a devolved government from next Wednesday, Thursday, and therefore a bit more hope for the future.
This is what we're all looking for and what we want.
We want to be able to come into town and have no fear of anything going to happen, even in the future.
There's no doubt that since the end of the Troubles, we have seen greater interest in Northern Ireland. We have a lot of interest from America and elsewhere, so that is bound to have an effect.
Any of you who have built a sizable building on Belfast's alluvium clays, Belfast's leach as it's known locally, or as we call it in our office, reinforced water, will know that very often you have to go down before you can go up. I think we've been down long enough.
I would say that in most of the working class areas, from the period that I grew up as a child to now, there has been a dramatic change in the standard of housing, for the better, I have to add.
It's still a segregated city with all of the associated problems that brings.
Peace walls are part and parcel of our society. They're part of our history. They've been going up for years and continue to go up. We had one just put up last year.
The issue around contested space, segregation, both of the population as a whole, but also within services and access to services and employment, mobility.
That's a sad indictment of where we want to head, and people need to ask themselves seriously what type of society they want to live in.
We live in a much more unequal society now than 20, 30 years ago, which is perplexing. Neither governments, Conservative or Labour, have been able to do anything to reduce that inequality.
The worst thing we could do now would be simply say, oh, well, everything's all right, and we're going to do nothing more. We don't need to put any extra resources in because everything is sorted. I mean, and then let events take their course. That cannot be allowed to happen.
Now we've established a form of peace. We have done away with paramilitary and sectarian violence on an organised scale. But we still have to bring about reconciliation between the two great traditions here, the nationalist tradition and the unionist tradition.
30-odd years of conflict was a very, very long time, and people expect it to be over in 30 years. Well, it's going to take a lot longer than that, because hurt, as we've seen through World War I and World War II, does carry a long, long time. And I think people have long memories and difficulties to overcome some of the hurt that they've endured. And I think it's going to be a massive exercise for us all to engage and develop and practice what we all preach.